Stories about Black history, 10 things your child should know, and workbooks on division, multiplication, and fractions can all be found on our website at searchblackineducation.com. Founded in 1867, Alabama State University was started as the Lincoln Normal School at Marion. The Board of Trustees was made up of 9 men who were formerly enslaved: Joey Pinch, Thomas Speed, Nicholas Dale, James Childs, Thomas Lee, John Freeman, Nathan Levert, David Harris, and Alexandra H. Curtis. This was not surprising because African Americans sought freedom, education, God, and family after the Civil War, and many advances in education came as a result of their efforts and the efforts of organizations like the American Missionary Association, the federal government itself, everyday citizens, and state legislatures. But the history of what would become Alabama State University in Montgomery, Alabama, was not just limited to the activism that was done after the Civil War. On May 17, 1954, the Supreme Court handed down its decision in the Brown versus the Board of Education case, ending the legal support for segregation in public schools. On August 28, 1955, Emmett Till was murdered in Money, Mississippi. And on December 1, 1955, Rosa Parks was arrested in Montgomery, Alabama, where Alabama State is, for not giving up her seat when a white bus driver demanded her to do so. Immediately, people at Alabama State sprung into action. Professor Joanne Robinson, who was a professor of English at the then Alabama State College, authored a handbill that encouraged Black citizens not to ride the city buses on the day that Rosa Parks was scheduled to go to trial that following Monday. She and some students and another faculty member stayed up that night in Council Hall on Alabama State's campus and printed up over 35,000 handbills. Then she and students from Alabama State, members of the Women's Political Council, which was very active in Alabama at that time, and along with people like Ralph Abernathy, handed out thousands of handbills the next day to people all across Montgomery, Alabama, getting the word out about the bus boycott. The response was so overwhelming that it convinced the leaders of the Montgomery Improvement Association, of which Dr. King was a member and leader, to continue that bus boycott until there was a real change in Montgomery, Alabama, when it came to the way Black people were treated on the buses. It ushered in what many people consider the modern civil rights movement, and Alabama State was integral in that movement. In fact, Dr. King is quoted as saying in his memoir, referring to Professor Joanne Robinson, apparently indefatigable, she, perhaps more than any other person, was active on every level of protest. Some famous people who went to or graduated from Alabama State: Reverend Ralph Abernathy was by all accounts the closest friend of Dr. Martin Luther King throughout the civil rights movement, right up until Dr. King's murder and death. Reverend Abernathy was instrumental in the organization of the Montgomery bus boycott, and he was a leader in the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. Attorney Fred Gray, he filed a lawsuit on behalf of 4 women to challenge the constitutionality of the separate but equal doctrine as it relates to public transportation in the Browder versus Gale case in February of 1956. While the year-long bus boycott continued, this case was fought in the U.S. District Court and in the Supreme Court until it was finally decided that segregation in Montgomery, Alabama on interstate buses was indeed unconstitutional. Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth was an undaunted freedom fighter. Having graduated from Alabama State, Shuttlesworth was active in Birmingham, Alabama. He organized the Alabama Christian Movement for Human Rights when the NAACP was banned from activities in his area. He helped launch a campaign to desegregate Birmingham's buses after the decision in Montgomery, Alabama had come down. He helped to organize the Voting Rights March from Selma to Montgomery in 1965. Despite being attacked several times and having his home bombed while he was in it, Shuttlesworth remained defiant and believed you have to confront a snake. You can't reason with it or shame it into doing what's right.